Thanks for being a part of In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics. And once again, it's playoff time, so it's time to visit with Solomon Wilcots, great player for the Cincinnati Bengals, safety extraordinaire, brilliant football mind. He was the quarterback of that secondary that went to Super Bowl 23. He knows of what he speaks. He's done all kinds of broadcast work as well in the National Football League, highly regarded, highly respected. Solomon Wilcots is a great guy to talk to about Bengals football, and we do. We talk to him about the playoff victory against the Buffalo Bills and what has to happen to handle the Kansas City Chiefs. Solomon Wilcots has an opinion, and he says it oh so well. You made a tremendous decision to join us in the Trenches with Dave Lapham, brought to you by First Star Logistics, coming to you from our outstanding studios as always, because we have the great, and I do mean the great, Solomon Wilcots joining us as a guest here. Solly, I've known for a long time, coming out of Colorado as a great college football player, was a tremendous football player for the Cincinnati Bengals, was the quarterback of the secondary. Everybody looked to Solly for answers. Solly was a football savant from Jump Street, and he was basically the organizer and the guy that put everybody in the right spot back there in the great secondary that the Bengals had that went to Super Bowl 23. And then after the playing days were over, took all that football knowledge and acumen and talent to the broadcast arena and does an unbelievable job. And in fact, I was just listening to Solly this morning and learning, as I always do when I listen to Sirius XM NFL radio. Solomon Wilcots doing his thing. And Solly, welcome, man. You're the best.
Thank you. Hey, appreciate that introduction, Dave. You're always very kind and generous. That's why I love coming on with you, man. As soon as you text me, can I come on? I leap at a chance, the opportunity when time permits. And look, I call these the golden years for being a Cincinnati Bengal fan. And as a former player, I'm a fan. There's no doubt, always have been. It's the team that drafted me. I played for 3 teams in this league, but I always tell people the team that drafted you now, that's the one who believed in you more than any other. So yep. There's a sense of loyalty there.
You're absolutely right, and there's no two ways about that, man. I was listening to you guys this morning talking football, and it seems like on a national basis that the Cincinnati Bengals are garnering more and more respect as things roll on here. It's like the Bengals they've done a good job of finding something to put a chip on their shoulder with that becomes a 2x4. But I think more and more people are realizing it's a damn good football team.
Yeah, it's kind of like, we're kind of like these disciples. You yourself, me, a Boomer Esiason, a Chris Collinsworth. We're kind of in our corners of the world, and we're whispering to people day by day about who Joe Burrow really is, and who Joe Mixon as a leader, and what kind of coach Zac Taylor is. Right? We've got so many variables that people just didn't see coming. Like no one would. They saw what Joe Burrow did at LSU, but they were like, that's college. No way he'll be able to lift this organization from one of the worst to one of the first. And we could say worse because he was the first overall pick, right? They didn't see Lou Anarumo and the genius of what he does defensively. They didn't see that coming. No one knew about Zac Taylor. I remember when Zac was with Joe Philbin's staff in Miami. Yeah. And I remember Lou Anarumo when he was there in Miami. I just liked all the guys there. It was a really good group of coaches with the Miami Dolphins. But I remember him being and you cover the Big 12. I played in what was the Big 8 at Colorado. Our arch enemy was Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And while I'm much older than Zac, I just, I watch all the schools in that conference, and he was Offensive Player of the Year at Nebraska. Yeah. So, I knew who these guys were and these players, and I just, a lot of other people now are finding out that these guys, if you just go back and check where they came from, who they were, a Samaj P. Ryan. He still holds the single game rushing record
Yeah.
in all of college football.
Right.
420 plus rushing yards. If you told somebody that, they think you that he just started playing football yesterday. Yeah. So,
Right.
so I don't know. I think the word is starting to get out, and it's about time they start listening.
So my question, Solly, you mentioned Lou Anarumo. Brian Callahan had an opportunity to interview by Zoom with the Indianapolis Colts earlier last week or whatever, or earlier this week, whenever it occurred, whenever he had that chance to hook up. Yeah. Lou Anarumo has yet to have an interview. And why do you think that is? Because I agree with you. Lou Anarumo has done a masterful job of game planning on an every week basis. And the last time the Buffalo Bills were held to 10 points, you have to go back to December of 2021, 25 games ago. You don't hold Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to 10 points, particularly at home. I don't care if it's a hailstorm and it's 100-mile-an-hour wind. I mean, Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense handled things. The Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen couldn't because of what Lou Anarumo was doing defensively.
Oh, there's no doubt. And Coach Anarumo he'll find his spot. And I told him, I said, can you give us another year? I just, I know you're going to end up leaving us, but just how about another year? So I'm doing this as much as I want the best for him. And I do believe it's coming. I need to probably spend more time with some NFL owners, because what happens to NFL owners, they're running a business that they know a lot about at the top level, but not at the granular level. In other words, they know verticals and how to stream revenues. And They know, okay, if for an executive position, I should probably hire this kind of guy because he's bringing in money. But when you talk about running the game of football and the team aspects of what makes the players great, because the players are the product, it's so granular that they lose sight that in the building, other than players, because I really believe that coaches are really the greatest commodity that our sport has. There's not a single player that we draft, I don't care how good they are, and you just throw them out there with the football and they go do what they do. There's not a one. You and I know this. There's not a one. They all need coaching in order to become great. Tom Brady needed it. Joe Burrow needed it. Peyton Manning needed it. I covered a lot of Peyton Manning's games his rookie year. He set a rookie record with 23 interceptions. Might have been 28. But my point is, coaching, it's so important because they develop players, they groom the players, they build the teams, they build the culture, they make it into, they take all these wonderful ingredients, but they're the ones who have to bake the cake. And if you look at all these owners want offensive coaches, and they don't realize, I'm going to give you some names, and they're all defensive guys. They cut their teeth coaching in even to more important degree, the secondary.
Yeah.
How about Nick Saban, who I put as a great coach no matter what.
Sure.
But Bill Belichick.
Yep.
Tom Landry, Tony Dungy, Dick LeBeau. The list goes on. And I put Lou Anarumo in that group. Mm-hmm. He's in that. Even the great Buddy Ryan, the reason why his defenses didn't last and have a long shelf life in the NFL, he built it from front to back.
Right.
But that's why Dan Marino carved him up on a Monday night game, because it wasn't coordinated on the back end. And if you screw it up on the back end, they're doing this. And so Lou Anarumo he's at the forefront of what is truly the great stuff about our game. And not only that, he can help build you out a roster.
Yeah. He
can help you to understand how players have to be multiple, and they've got to be thinkers, right? They got to be smart to be able to do multiple things. So we're not just lucky that we come up with these turnovers at critical moments in the game, at the end of games for weeks on end. We've done it because he's built it to be that way, and the player selection is all part of it. So these owners, they think that just go get a guy that can teach the quarterback and we'll win a bunch of games. I'd rather play against those guys, to be honest with you.
I hear you. You're right. Lou Anarumo, his defensive football team, a turnover in the fourth quarter, a takeaway in 7 straight games. I mean, when it's money time, game on the line,
Yeah.
somebody is making a play. And you're right, with the positionless players, the way he employs all these guys, and they got to be not only talented physically, they got to have the smarts to be able to handle all that stuff. And man, they're playing at such a high level. So let me ask you, Solly, when you watched that football game against the Buffalo Bills, were you as impressed as I was with how they played a clean game? They played a complete game, a complimentary game, every C word, they played with confidence. That football game was about as good as I've seen in a long time. That was great execution and great game planning and great execution.
It was by far their best game of the season.
I agree.
Wasn't even close. This was, think about it, 71 plays, and they only had 2 penalties.
Yep.
They had 0 turnovers, 2 penalties out of 71 snaps.
2 false starts. Yep.
That's right. That's near perfection. Yep. And 0 turnovers, no fumbles, no interceptions.
Never put it on the ground. It wasn't like fumbled and didn't lose it. Never put it on the ground.
Right. No fumbles at all. And they had a 62% scoring rate in terms of drive percentage.
Yep.
They scored on 6 of 8 possessions. The 9th possession didn't count because they took a knee and it was game over, right? On that 9th.
Agreed.
So on 6 of 8, they scored.
Yep.
So you're talking about clicking and hitting on all cylinders. They started off so fast that the Buffalo Bills, I'm talking on both sides of the ball.
Right.
We had long, sustainable drives, scoring touchdowns on each of our first 2 drives. But when our defense took the field on each of the Bills' first 2 drives, the Bills go 3 and out.
Yeah.
So that's optimal with offensive production at the highest level. Drive, score, touchdown. Defense go out, pitch a 3 and out. Offense come back out, goes drive, score, touchdown again. Defense pitch another 3 and out. In the first quarter, the Buffalo Bills had 3 offensive plays for less than 10 total yards of offense.
Right.
And we were up 14-0. And in that moment, because of how we did it in a physical way on offense and physical on defense, we dominated the line of scrimmage on offense. We dominated the line of scrimmage on defense. We literally took their heart. And it's a lot for me to say that. We snatched the heart right out of that football team.
You're right.
And it snatched the heart out of the fans, out of the audience.
Yep.
They were not a factor, and they could have been a factor considering we were missing 3 of our 5 offensive linemen, that if that crowd noise were to reach a crescendo, it could have caused problems for us on offense with our operations. But it took that out of play on the first 2 drives of the game within the first quarter.
Man, offensively, Frank Pollack, the run game coordinator, did such a masterful job. The Bengals rushed for 172 yards and averaging over 5 yards a carry as a team. And by formation, they got the nickel defensive back in the box as a linebacker. So now they have a smaller guy, and they pull tackle Adeniji to trap him, kick him out. Mixon's up the gut for big yardage. They have Jamar Chase, who's a man now. That's a full-grown man. He's cracking on the defensive end, and
saw that.
Jackson Carmen's coming around the horn and burying a 250-pound linebacker, just pancaking him. I'm like, man, the schematic, how they got the box with defensive backs in the box to stop the run game, and they get that running game going. Now all of a sudden the confidence builds, and they can throw the football easier. And Joe Burrow got it out. It was hot potato, man. The ball was out quick like we knew it would be. And Joe Burrow gets sacked 1 time and hit 2 others. And now when Joe Burrow's been sacked 3 times or less, Solly, in the last 2 years, the Bengals are 23 wins, 3 losses. That's crazy. Right. It's crazy.
He sees the entire field. His mechanics in the pocket are flawless. His vision down the field remains constant. He's continuing to survey what he's seeing while moving to the open space. And he's got great feel in the pocket. And what I love about him is something that I remember talking, a good friend of mine is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I remember telling him about Patrick Mahomes. He said, you've got to fix this. It's going to become a problem. And a lot of quarterbacks, when they feel pressure, they drift in the pocket. They drift backwards. Well, if you already started out, 10 yards back,
Right.
If you drift further back, now you're 15 to 20. The ball's got to travel 20 yards before it even crossed the line of scrimmage. I mean, you're helping my coverage, right? It's like, and so you don't want to do that. What quarterbacks want to do is climb the pocket. You got to press toward the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
And oftentimes you're going to pop through, even if you do take a sack, it's for a 2 or 3 yard loss. But your vision is down the field. You could see the entire field. When you drift to the right or to the left, you literally cut the field in half, and you help coverage in that way, the same as if you just drop straight back and keep going back, and back. It's not going to be conducive for a high completion percentage. So Joe Burrow has arrived already having that ingrained in his DNA, and that's why he's able to elude, despite the less than stellar pass blocking up front, he can raise the level of whatever blocking he is getting to be much more efficient, much more productive, because he has all the right fundamentals. And I think that's saying a lot for a guy who's only in his third year in the NFL. I would argue to say he hasn't even hit his prime. So if there's this right before him hitting his prime, I say to the rest of the NFL teams, look out.
Yeah, I agree 100,000%. You mentioned 71 plays, only 2 penalties, 71 plays, only 2 negative plays, 1 quarterback sack and 1 run that went for a loss. 69 others were positive plays. I mean, that's unbelievable. The efficiency and the execution to get that done. And the 2 penalties were offensive. Defense played a very physical game, held them to 10 points. No penalties. I mean, no interference, no holding, nothing, 0. That's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. I think it's a testament to coaching. These things don't happen by mistake. The way that Zac Taylor, Zac, I love his approach to the game. He's a really sound teacher. He understands that fundamentals is what win games, right? Not the screaming, the hollering, the yelling, just good, sound teaching. You've got to be able to coach situationally. Hey, when we're in this situation, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we need to really even think about it. I mean, just the way that he goes about getting them prepared to play. I mean, they come out smoking, and they come out with an intent. They're able to pin for themselves. Here's the reason why we're playing this game. Here's the mindset that we have for playing this game and towards our opponent. And here's how we are going to have to play to beat them. Like that, like they never waffle in that space. And all 53 guys already know we're pissed off. Yeah, we're pissed at the league. We're pissed at, we were giving it to the Bills. Why are we having to go travel and play them? You know what? Instead of complaining about it, we'll just do it. And we're going to make sure that there's no room for margin. I mean, that's getting your guys ready to play. You and I both know there's an art to that in this league. And if you don't pay attention to that and just hope that guys are going to show up to the ballpark to play every single week just because you're paying them a check, then you're just not paying attention. You and I both know it doesn't happen that way.
Right. Solly, you talk about the Bills, the trauma that took place, obviously, on Monday night. But the Bengals did have an offensive drive before it took place. 5 plays, 75 yards. Then the first 2 drives, like you talk about in this game, 6 plays for 79, 10 plays for 72. Those 3 drives to start these 2 football games, only 2 of them counted, obviously. 21 snaps, 226 yards, more than 10 yards of play for 3 touchdowns. It's like, boom, boom. They're just destroying them. They're just like totally taking them apart. I mean, you wonder how that Monday night game was going to end. I think it was going to end very similarly to what we saw in this playoff game, man. They just came out. And now when this team scores first, Solly, they're 10-0. 10-0 when they score first. And
when we score on that first drive, especially, right? It's like,
man,
because that tells you Joe is seeing it really well. And I think with the more games that he has under his belt, he sees it well sooner in the game. And there are some teams out there that already know their coaching staffs. For instance, like when we played the Titans last year in that playoff game, I said, I know Coach Vrabel. I knew the Patriots would be sort of that way. Like they're going to throw some mini wrinkles. It's kind of like Joe Burrow playing against Lou Anarumo.
Right.
That's why I don't want to see Lou go anywhere, because there are a few of these coaches, they're going to give you multiple looks, and they can really muddy the waters in terms of what the quarterback is seeing. And sometimes it takes a while to diagnose some of the things in the way that defenses are rotating and what they're doing to you, especially. And so that's why it may take some time to get cooking. There are other times when Joe figures guys out immediately. It's kind of like reading their mail, It's like, once he figures it out, he's got you and you're done. Right. I used to see that when I was calling games for CBS. I would see that with Tom Brady. I would see that with Drew Brees and Peyton Manning. Peyton was one of the best at it. This is the youngest quarterback that I've ever seen mimic a lot of those attributes at an early stage in their careers. This is the youngest I've ever even seen it with those quarterbacks that I just mentioned.
Solly, defensively against Buffalo, like you mentioned about Lou Anarumo with what he does in the back end, how he disguises and confuses, disguises coverages and confuses quarterbacks as a result. And with these mobile quarterbacks, and Josh Allen fit that bill, the Bengals are doing that mush rush stuff, again, and making sure they never lost contain. They never got a distortion in their rush, and they had Josh Allen contained and controlled. And now he's looking downfield and he's pumping it. I'm not sure. I don't know, and you got him. Now let's fast forward to Kansas City. Mahomes, a gimpy Mahomes. You might not have to spy as much as you thought you might with Mahomes now at the quarterback position. And if you mush rush him and take that, you think it'll be the same type of thing that they tried to do, that they did successfully with Josh Allen, they'll try to do against Mahomes?
Yeah, I think what they won't do is you don't have to blitz him because that kind of clears it up for him right away.
Right.
And you're saying get the ball out of your hands quick. I think you're okay with him holding the ball a little bit now, right?
Yep.
And bringing that rusher a little bit later, so to adding him to the mix later. We've seen Lou do a little bit of both in the past, right?
Yep.
I love what we call that green dog spy. You may have the back. If the back stays in and block, now we add you to the rush a beat later, while you're using the mush rush to control and contain them in the pocket. You already know which way you want to force them, or you want to force them to step up. Then you go ahead up the field. You add that blitzer coming right up the gut. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but I think you could see more of that. You got to definitely take away the deep shots down the field. And so it's okay to play some quarters coverage, play some cover two, and then play some two-man. Have the safeties over the top, and then you can go man underneath,
right?
And then look to maybe add late pressure or a late rusher to the mix to get after Mahomes. I like to be able to disrupt his timing and not allow him to stay back there too long and hold it and read it. As you know, after a certain point, you hold it too long, coverage can break down. We can't cover them all day, Dave.
Yeah.
We can't,
right.
Sooner or later, somebody's going to shake loose. So you ultimately is going to have to get them. I don't see them running away from the likes of Hubbard. This is a game that's built for Trey Flowers, so I hope we have him back in rotation today. He's an exceptional matchup against Travis Kelce. He that's why he's on this team. You and I both know that, to take away the athletic tight ends like a Darren Waller or a Travis Kelce.
So the Bengals were so balanced, Solly, against the Buffalo Bills in terms of play selection and really getting off to that great start, added that immeasurably. They ran it 34 times and threw it 36. Now the Bills fall behind 14 zips, so they only run it 19 times and throw it 42. The Bengals had 13 first downs rushing, 14 first downs passing. You can't be more balanced than that. Buffalo, 4 first downs rushing, 14 passing, for the reasons we just said. They get that 14-0 lead. Mm-hmm. Do you think that it's vitally important for the Bengals to have, I'm not saying go out and rush for another 170 yards against the Kansas City Chiefs, but you have to have particularly that help that offensive line big time to anchor that line of scrimmage, rushing for 170-plus yards. Got to do it again against Kansas City?
Yeah, I think it does multiple things, right?
Yeah.
It protects your offensive line from putting
Right.
them in what we call that known situation of pass blocking. We
Mhm.
average against the Bills over 6 yards per play on
Right.
first downs.
Right.
So that means we were looking at second and medium, third and medium or short. So we always stayed in that real good balance of being able to do either or to keep defenses off balance, which means your offensive line is, you can't pin your ears back and come after the quarterback. So that protects a vulnerable offensive line in way of its pass protection.
Right.
Just because you're creating more doubt for the defense, and they can't be overly aggressive and just
Gotta
pin
play it
their ears
honest.
back.
Yeah,
That's
gotta
right.
play it honest. Yeah.
I think it also goes a long way into, particularly when you're playing against the Mahomes and the Chiefs. You're playing keep away. You and I both know the best defense against Patrick Mahomes is keep him standing next to Andy Reid on the sideline. You know, it's like, he can't score when he's standing over there, can he? And so we won these games, particularly late against Kansas City, by playing keep away. It wasn't necessarily by chasing points as much as you were logging more snaps. You were stealing time of possession.
Yep.
You were stealing, limiting their possessions, holding on to the football while still scoring. And then at the end of game, we don't need to score anymore. We just need to run that clock out and not give Mahomes the ball back. We did that multiple times, and that's how we've been able to beat them. So that's where the run game truly does factor in our ability to win that battle in the time of possession, play keep away from Mahomes, limit their opportunities to score while optimizing the time when we do have the ball and paying it off down inside the red zone.
So do you think on the flip side of that, and this was the thing that stunned me in the championship game last year when the Bengals were rushing 3 and dropping 8, and the Chiefs were playing with the lead, and they never ran the ball the way the Bengals were playing defense. And they never. And I'm thinking, boy, Andy, he's like, I'm gonna beat you with Mahomes, and I'm gonna beat you with Kelce. I don't care. I'm gonna do it, you know. And it's like, man, why didn't you run the football? Do you think with a limited Mahomes physically and some things that they're dealing with, do you think they will try to run the football a little bit more? Or do you think they'll be, this is who we are and this is what we're going to do?
Yeah, I do think they've leaned into that a little bit more. This Isaiah Pacheco,
Yeah.
this dude runs hard and he's
Ugh.
quick. He's quick and he's darting.
Yep.
You know, I think he could be a handful. In fact, the thing about them that concerns me the most is he and Jerick McKinnon.
Yep.
McKinnon can run it. He can catch it out of the backfield.
Right.
This guy's always been good in our league. I remember him when he was in Minnesota. He was with the 49ers, but he was hurt every year. They had to move on because he was literally his very first year in training camp. He got hurt, never fully recovered there, never got to be 100% again. Then when I saw the Chiefs pick him up, I said, oh, this guy, he's the kind of running back Eric Bieniemy loves. The kind of guys that are all muscle.
Yeah.
You can't tackle them. First guy's never going to get him on the ground, and that's McKinnon. That's Isaiah Pacheco. These guys are really good. They're going to be a handful, and I'm more concerned about those guys than I am any of their receivers.
Yeah.
I think that if you prioritize, you got to stop Kelce, but then you got to be worried about these running backs.
Agreed, 100,000%. And let me ask you, Solly, how does a guy like Pacheco that runs a sub 4.40 go in the 7th round? I mean, what? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Hey, there's a lot of people that when it comes to picking players and understanding what works at this league, I'm telling you, a lot of people, I don't know where. My good friend Bill Polian calls it the draft industrial complex. He said, like, there's a lot of people who've infiltrated this business of telling us who can and can't play and why this guy should be drafted here. And it's a lot of opinions and a lot of people who have never done it. But, you know, I think people get caught and trapped into prototypes. They don't want to take running backs in the first round. And if they do, he's better have height, weight, size measurables.
Right.
Running back is about two things: your toughness and your elusiveness. Mm-hmm. The first guy should never be first unblocked defender should never be able to tackle. If in this league, you got to make the first unblocked defender miss.
Amen.
Hook or crook.
Amen.
I don't care if it's with stiff arm. I don't care if it's with move and shake like Barry Sanders. However it is, you got to do it. That first guy cannot get you on the ground. And if that guy, I don't care if he's at Timbuktu University, if he's doing that, when I watch the tape, oh yeah, he got my attention. And then when the second and third guy get there, they're turning it down. They don't want any parts of the guy.
Yeah.
So that part of it is so very important. And then you want to know, okay, how well do they know and scan for protection? Can they catch it coming out of the backfield? There's some other things, but those critical two things, the toughness, because when one day you might get there and the yards are coming hard, we can't get them all blocked. Are you going to keep bringing it? And do you wear down defenses over 4 quarters, or do they wear you down? So that's where that toughness comes into play. And then the ability to be elusive and make people miss. I remember Chuck Foreman. I was talking, you remember the great Chuck Foreman with the Vikings.
Sure.
This guy was, he was rookie of the year when he came to the league in 77. And he was with the Vikings, just a great player. I played for the Vikings. Got to know Chuck really well. He was talking to me. He says, I remember after my rookie year, I had one rookie of the year. Bud Grant called me and said, look at you, Chuck. You see how you make all these guys miss? Oh, look at this spin move. It's so beautiful. You made that guy miss. He says, now look, Chuck, I'm going to tell you. One day, maybe 7, 8, 10 years from now, we're going to bring you back into our office, and you ain't going to be able to make that first guy miss anymore. In fact, they're going to get you on the ground every time. Don't make us come to you and tell you that the game has passed you by. Well, just call us friends and let's agree that it's time to go. It was hilarious. I thought it was just a wonderful way of that's how coaches are. They're evaluating every year, and the good running backs, when they're really on top of their game, they don't have problem making guys miss.
Right.
And then when they're not on top of their game, the first guy get them on the ground, they want to blame the offensive lineman. They want to blame the receiver for missing a block. Bruh, you used to be able to make that guy miss with regularity. All we know is you can't do that anymore. Don't make us come tell you that this is not for you. Just, let's stay friends.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story. Speaking of a problem, you said that's a problem, referencing not being able to make guys miss as a running back. Let's talk a little Kansas City Chiefs defense. And Chris Jones is our problem. And he can play inside. He can play outside. Yeah. He can play on either side of the inside or outside. He is something special. Talk to me a little bit about what you think about him and the Chiefs defense. Give me some of your thoughts in that regard.
They've got some guy. I love Chris Jones. I mean, this guy, he's like the second coming of Fletcher Cox.
Yeah.
Who, that now I got Fletcher here. I got Chris Jones right here, but he in the neighborhood, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And he can flat out bring it. He can wreck your game. You've got to win the leverage battle, but you're going to have to bring it for 4 quarters to beat them. It's a shame they don't have the consistency at the edge rushers. They got some guys who can bring it. And every now and then they rise up and they start to be able to make plays. But I think they're really good. But we've faced better. I mean, think about in terms of the edge rusher. If you ask me, where I rather face this group of coming off the edge, or would I rather play against Myles Garrett? I'd say I'd rather play this group, right?
Agreed.
And so I think defensively, I don't think they match up to us as very well. I don't think that they can say rightfully, we got somebody for Jamar Chase. We've got somebody for T. Higgins.
Yep.
We've got somebody for Joe Mixon and Hayden Hurst and Tyler Boyd. I think this is the reason why we've been able to win these games, because they're well coached. You know that, and I know that.
Sure.
All of these games came down. I think all 3 of them, why we might be 3-0, we've won every one of them by 3 points, right?
Yeah.
34-31 regular season last year, 27-24 each of the last 2 times we played. Came down to the very last possession. And so they're very close. The margin is razor thin. But I do think offensively, I think they've got good corners. They've got good safeties. They've got good linebackers and good defensive linemen. I think we match up very well with them. I really, truly do. I think matchups make the fight. It makes the games. And while you can look at their record over the course of, a span of time and look at our record and say, wow, the Chiefs are the better team. That's how they get to host 5 straight AFC title games, right?
Right.
But when there are certain times, it's like fighters, 2 boxers, right? Styles make fights. I think we have the right ingredients to match up very well against the Kansas City Chiefs.
I agree. I think they have to play zone. I don't see them playing. I
There's
don't see
no doubt.
any man. I don't see that. And when Spagnuolo has blitzed, Joe Burrow says, "Bad decision, coach. Bad decision."
Yeah.
Okay, so let me get you out of here on this, Solly, and appreciate you giving us the time you gave us, because I know you're busy as all get out, but I could talk football with you forever and love talking football with you. If you had to boil it down to a key or two in this football game, give me Solomon Wilcots' key to success for the Bengals against the Chiefs.
When we attack them, we've got to protect the ball. That's the real key, is just sometimes, and I love the way Joe Burrow plays, because he's a guy that plays under control. He manages the game really well. He manages every opportunity, every situation. And so the real key for our offense is having everyone on the same page with Joe Burrow. There are times when our receivers, they drift and then the ball's here and it gets tipped up. Next thing you know, it's an interception. Or we don't get the defensive lineman, we don't make them get their hands down. They tip a ball at the line of scrimmage and then they end up getting a pick. Those few moments, you remember even in the Ravens game where we had a fake screen over to Jamar and we got T. Higgins. He comes free and Joe kind of just gets a little bit too much on it and airmails it, right?
Yep.
Those are the differences between games being close and us pulling away. There are moments in games where you could tell we have moments to pull away and we miss on those moments. And now the game ends up being close. We'll still win it. But those are these critical moments, particularly in the playoffs and in games like this, where we're going to have an opportunity. I really do believe we're playing at that level. We're confident. I really do feel like right now only we can beat ourselves. That's not being disrespectful to the Chiefs at all.
Right.
But I just believe that this team is so confident. They're so good. They're so well coached that now we've got to just make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's and that we keep clicking. So if we're operating in sync with one another, if we're connected, right? Quarterback and receiver, running back, waiting for that pull block to kick out and then hitting it up in there, not getting there too soon. If we're connected like that, man, we're going to be clicking. On defense, if we got the rush where we just got to contain them, don't get overly aggressive and get too far up the field, just those little details. If in our secondary, we don't peek in the backfield on a slug up, on a slant route, right? And go getting greedy, they won't throw the ball over our heads. I'm telling you. So it's those little finer, real details, those disciplines that ultimately determines games of this magnitude when both teams, remember I told you the margins are that thin.
Yeah.
That's what decides who wins and who loses.
Well said, Solly. And from a man who played in the Super Bowl himself, understands the game of football. And again, can't thank you enough for joining us, because I know you get pulled in a bunch of different directions by a whole bunch of different people.
Hey, it's a busy time, but it's fun. It was good for me to come off the road. You know what that life is like, Dave. I get to do it all from the home office, but I still get to cover the sport that I love and talk about the game that I love. And I still, hell, I'm still wanted, I guess, right? That's always a good thing, to be in demand as opposed to sitting by the phone and it not ringing. So, I even got to connect with my good friend Dick LeBeau last week, and oh my goodness, did we have a great time. And I'd love to get him into the building down there. And he's a good person to have around our players. I think it would be a treat.
And he's what, 86 now, Solly?
Yeah, man.
86 years young. He probably looks like he's 50.
And he's still better than all of us.
He's something else, man. Something else. Well, you're the best. Appreciate you, Solly. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me.
At First Star Logistics, we're a very strict company that really puts the pressure on our employees. Breaks? What are those?
That's what I'm talking about, Icky. Get the body right, then the mind's right.
You know, gotta get that body right. That's right. Yes, sir.
Become a star with a chance to earn the highest commission percentages in the industry as a freight broker agent. Check out firststarlogistics.com.